From days to weeks to months to years and decades and so on, we have a brand new zombie horror genre legacy sequel from the iconic cult horror franchise 28 years later. Finally here, finally returns. Big old Danny Boyle, it returns on the big screen with his filmmaking to the next. And this is 28 years later we're talking about, but I cannot wait to talk about this movie with you guys. But if you're new to the channel, as we get started, be sure to subscribe and leave a like, as it really helps a lot. Let's dig into 28 years later. So before I talk about 20 years later, I do have a little history behind this franchise. Now, simply, this is a franchise that, for one, I never got into zombie-filled genres except the video games, at least from Days Gone to The Last of Us. But when it comes to a film franchise like this, for instance, what really put me in doubt situations is not only the zombie vibes, but it's the atmospheric tone and the shaky camera, which really puts me in some situations that I was not really the feel to this franchise. But I had to, of course, watch the previous films days and weeks. And I will say 28 Days Later is seems to be the cult classic of the best film the series has yet to done. But 28 years later, with bringing Danny Boyle and Alex Garland back to the writing and directing department with these two, and without them, it would have been like the same of what this franchise does. But this sequel does a great job of going to a certain direction where it leads off from days to weeks to months to even decades. And so far, coming out of this movie, while some decisions were conflicted at most times a bit in terms of like where it went and the tone shifts, I come out with this movie with zero expectations, and I really enjoyed it for what it is, and it really fulfills this why 28 Days franchise is a cult classic to the hype that many people are so excited about with this new particular film. From the trailers, which the trailer is pretty much awesome, and then to the real movie, yes, it's not perfect, but there's a lot of technical achievements to talk about and the goods of this movie. But overall, I came out very enjoyed with 28 years later, more than I anticipated. So Danny Boyle, the director from the first 28 Days, comes back with an amazing technical achievement filmmaking to the next level of impressiveness to why this film is achievably incredible to witness on the big screen. Went from shooting the first movie with a digital quality, poor camera, to shooting this movie with an iPhone 15 Pro Max, which I think that's the iPhone that you use either way. But my God, that's an incredible technical achievement. We all never seen what this movie has ever done before. And when you look at this movie, as you watch the movie, it doesn't really feel like a iPhone shot video. It is a full on surreal movie that you're going to watch when you watch this movie. And it doesn't feel cheap at all, which is amazing. They shot this all across the board with stunning visuals, and the editing department of this movie with the zombies, with the kills. It really was enjoyable, easy to see, and it didn't feel too much shakier like 28 Weeks Later had, which was the big problem I also had with that film. But going to 28 years later, I thought everything with the editing and the directional shots were incredible, and the way the movie was shot. I loved that technical aspect so much for Danny Boyle. He did a fantastic job with his technical style to this movie, and it feels incredible all across the board. And Alex Garland, who also came back to wrote this movie from 28 Days, did a great job with this writing, of course. And there were even some laughable ones too, which I'll get with the cast in just in a bit. But the direction of this movie with the writing was also really good to see as well, especially where this franchise sets off from the previous two movies to 28 years later, and where it continues and where it goes with the rage virus that affects all across the board. And that's the writing I like to see where it goes. So they did a good job of attaining what 28 Days Later had with this advantage, with the advantage it got to transitioning away from 28 weeks to bring in the normal and formality for what the first one had to this legacy sequel. And I thought it was really good from all editing and storytelling of that. The violence and blood and gore in this movie are terrific to see, even with newer infected zombies in this movie, such as the alphas. And I thought they are a great addition because the way they kill in this movie They literally tear people's heads off and their spines out of their body is the most gruesome part I able to really enjoy for what I seen. And there's a lot of gory parts too in this movie that really was entertaining to watch with the infected killing and the shots and the alphas killing. I mean, the gore in this movie is terrific all across the board to what I seen, and I thought that it was really enjoyable to what 28 days later and 28 weeks to the years has regenerate the gores and violence this movie to the franchise going into this film. The kills in this movie were terrific start to finish from all the violence they had, and it's even bloodier and gorier than what the previous movies has ever had. The cast in this movie, particularly one person out of anyone, made an impressional career performance that is going to get a huge career boost off that film. And it's even a child actor, for God's sakes. Let's talk about Alfie Williams, who carried this movie's soul on his back. Who also serves the coming age story narrative to this character. He plays Spike, who plays the son of Jamie and Ilra, and I thought his character really grew and evolved the coming age narrative to what this kid has to go through from learn to kill, learn to survive, and learn to adapt what the world is after 28 years of the rage virus. And I really liked a lot of his performance. And he's got some funny ones in this movie that a lot of people in my theater, as I watched the movie, were laughing. And I thought there were some crowd pleasing, funny moments that he's talked through this movie, surprisingly to what this tone does. But Alfie Williams made an impression to his career, and I'm excited to see where he goes. I loved his performances. Jodie Comer plays the mother of Spike. I thought she was terrific. Ralph Fiennes, who should have won an Oscar for Conclave, and I like seeing Ralph Fiennes on the big screen and on movies wise. Really, now he wasn't throughout the whole movie until later in the third half, but I will say he was also interesting in this movie and his character as well. Plays a doctor who you may look at him like he's almost like an insane, ruthless serial killer, but he's actually not. That's just his way, his adaptability to surviving. I thought his character was really interesting, but hopefully we'll get to see more of it in the later in the franchise. But the casting, of course, were pretty amazing. Eric Taylor Johnson, just to quickly talk about, nothing too particularly special about him, nothing too crazy about it. I thought he did pretty good for what he did. So at least he's still got some acting particular jobs there. So I mean, hey, I thought he did pretty good, but nothing worth crazy. But Alfie Williams, I got to give my sensational flowers to his stardom, and I'm hoping to see him go into careers like this. Now, I previously said I went with this movie with zero expectations. I will say there's a couple flaws to the film that didn't really work with me in some ways. Is the tone where the film goes in terms of the shifting plot and where it goes half and half later on. There may be some weird tone shifts. I kind of find it a little weird at times. But I will say what hits the tone right is that there is some emotional, heart hitting scenes that will leave you in awe inspired. I do got to say, some of the heart pounding moments, emotionals, do hit pretty good. And some direction of this movie, especially how this movie ends, does conflict a lot of people going into this movie, and I understand why. But if you understood what this franchise is going to next, I will tell you, you have to understand why this movie either ends the way it is or not. And I know it's conflicted, but just to simply put, we're getting a 28 years later franchise trilogy. So we're getting the trilogy going on with the sequel coming up in the next 7 months, The Bone Temple in January. So if you understood why the ending is a little bit weird, it makes a total sense. And I know it's not going to please everyone with what the direction goes, but I find 28 years later overall holding its legacy to the max with where this franchise goes. And I still think that it was capped off pretty fine for how it is, despite the tone and shift plots going on. I still think it's not perfect, but it still holds up pretty well with what 28 Days Later had, but only for something a little different and complex a bit and different. Just overall doesn't may not work with everybody, but I think it really works for how it works out. Despite its flaws, 20 Years Later is an amazing legacy sequel that's able to hold on to where the franchise goes. Previously, with Danny Boyle and Alex Garland returning to scene, and Danny Boyle's filmmaking achievement to the technical max using an iPhone is stunningly incredible of the shots and the zombies and the action and the set pieces all across the board. And the writing of Alex Garland caps off incredibly for where this franchise goes from the previous franchise. Casting wise, Alfie Williams is the soul and heart of the coming age character that's going to make you feel that you want to root for this character a lot more, with the additional cast of Jodie Comer, Ralph Fiennes, and Aaron Taylor Johnson as well, that served great to standing on their own as their performances shine through this film. And overall, I know not everyone's going to be pleased to how or why this ends. Do understand the Bone Temple is coming out in a couple months in January by Nia DaCosta, which I'm very excited now to look forward to. So whatever you like it or not, stay on the board for 20 years later. It is about to get exciting for where this goes, and I can already see why this franchise has gone the max for where it all started to now. It still holds up the hype to where it goes next. I will be giving 20 years later a 7.5 out of 10 and 3.5 stars, so almost identical to the first 28 days later. And I don't know, have a preference to what I like, but if we're talking like filmmaking aspect, 28 years later looks a lot better and looks realistically awesome to see on the big screen to witness like a zombie film. So I'll be thinking about this a lot to which one I prefer the most, but it's probably gonna end up being 28 years later for how I like it overall. But guys, if you've seen the movie, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section, and how excited you are for the Bone Temple, which we'll get in the next 7 months away with Nia DaCosta. So we will see where this franchise goes. But if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and leave a like, as it really helps a lot. And if you enjoyed this review as well, most importantly, I wanted you to last. One of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.